Good evening. The 20th century has experienced 2 world wars. Tonight we will honor those who've served during those most difficult times. The First World War raged from 1914 into 1918. The United States entered in April 1917. 80 years later, in April of 1997, we interviewed a World War I veteran, Mr. Joseph Liccardo. Mr. Liccardo had recently celebrated his 100th birthday. And we are now going to present some excerpts from that interview in which he talks about his life in the Army, his assistance in the Army handling the deadly 1918 influenza epidemic, which killed over 500,000 people in the United States alone and 20 million worldwide. Mr. Liccardo will also offer advice on how to live a long and healthy life.
When I was in there, we were supposed to go on the other side. We were already all set to be shipped out there. Some kind of a flu, maybe you'll remember it. It killed everybody. I never seen so many people die from that sickness. This 1918.
I remember reading about that, yes.
Huh?
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
You remember that?
Flu, yes. Influenza.
So, when I was supposed to be shipped out, I know a lieutenant, he was a doctor. I said, geez, I'm going to be shipped out. My mother's very sick. He said, don't worry, I'll fix it, Joe. He did. You don't have to go. So, I stayed home a couple of weeks. Everything was all right. But I was working for an undertaker. They didn't have nobody to do it. Everybody, oh, I never saw someone. On a station, the railroad station, the coffin was so damn high, they didn't know where the hell to put the dead ones anymore.
Oh. Really?
This 1918, Patterson, everybody was sick and dying. They was just laying in the grass, dead. They're waiting to be taken away.
Oh.
And I didn't get nothing.
Wow.
I worked with them.
Yeah.
Just bring them to Baltimore, to Deadwood.
Oh.
I done all of this stuff.
Oh, that
An overseas drug. No.
Okay. But you were
We're supposed to go.
you were going to.
The hell's right.
Mm-hmm.
All the people who was dying here, I don't know what happened. They don't tell you.
Yeah.
Well, you remember that was some kind of a sickness?
Right. Yes.
I never seen them laying in the grass all over the place. A lot of singing. Oh my God, all day long. One time, something wrong with my feet. We're traveling miles to go to the shooting galleries where you're supposed to know how to shoot a gun.
Right.
So my feet, I don't want to drop out. One of the guy keep me on. Look, Joe Liccardo, get in line. Joe Liccardo, get in line. I told him in a nice way. I said, I can't walk. I don't want to drop out. Don't look right. All over again. I said, if I get you in civilian clothes, I'll shoot you. When we went back to the office, the big shot called me in his office. I said, yes. I told him that. You want? I'll show you. He said, no, never mind. It's all right. You can go. I don't want to drop out.
Sure.
You know, when you drop out, you're either faking it or something. So I went through. They told me I could shoot good.
You turned 100 last February. What are some of your secrets for long life?
I had a nice yard in the back. I used to raise everything, garlic, and I used to eat a lot of garlic. I liked that. I used to make my own wine. I would go to market and buy grapes, smash it up, and make good wine. I always had, my father always had a good glass of wine, so when I got married, I done it myself. I raised tomatoes, celery, everything I used to raise. I kept busy all the time. Now you take these kids, we get acquainted, kids play around. I get all the education you can get. You'll need it. And don't forget about it. Go to school, and at night you have to go to another school. Go. Learn everything. Because that's how you live in this country.
What you're looking forward to in the future?
To stay alive.
Well, it's certainly been a pleasure talking with you, Mr. Liccardo. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
A pleasure talking to you, too.
Okay.
You got a beautiful smile. I ain't.
Well, thank you. Mr. Liccardo is a most engaging personality. Now, World War I was called the war to end all wars. But 21 years later, the world was once again at war, lasting from 1939 to 1945. The United States entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. Shortly after that, my next two guests joined the Army Air Corps. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome these two gentlemen. Immediately to my left is Mr. Peter Book from Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And to his left is Mr. Edmund Himaleski from South Plainfield, New Jersey. Welcome, gentlemen. Tell us, what was the mood in the United States just before its entry into the war?
Well, the mood in the country was quite divided. You had a very strong isolationist movement in the country. People did not want to get involved, and I think it was a repercussion from World War I. But when Pearl Harbor hit, it immediately transformed the whole country. I don't think the country was so united in its history. Everybody was American. Everybody wanted to wear a uniform. Everybody wanted to take on the enemy. In fact, it was almost considered a disgrace to be in civilian clothes. And at that time, I was working in the defense plant in Perth Amboy, General Cable, and I was anxious to get in. And I was just a teenager yet. But I had to have my parents' signature. And finally, when I prevailed on my father that I'm going to be drafted eventually, so I might as well pick my spot, which was in the Air Corps. See, everybody was, at that time, they were building it up to President Roosevelt said he was going to have 100,000 aircraft and he needed people to man them and all that. So my pop was reluctant to sign the papers. He said, look, wait till they grab you. So he didn't want me to sign for aircrew. I said, look, Pop, just sign so I can go in. And after he signed in, I checked off aircrew. So I might have deceived him a little bit, but that's the best part that in my mind. So I entered the Army in July '42, and I was the Army Air Corps. Well, make a long story short, I went through navigation school, and I was disappointed again because I wanted to be in big bombers, hitting them over in Europe. But they assigned me to troop carrier, and I thought I was going to go over to Europe. And they even had the maps, charts, and everything ready for it. They even gave us the cold weather gear, the parkas and all that business. We were supposed to go by way of Newfoundland, Iceland, then to England. But lo and behold, they turned us around and sent us to San Francisco, and we're going out to the South Pacific with our winter gear. So I'd never been out of sight of land, and I had to fly from Travis Air Force Base to Honolulu, 2,100 nautical miles, in a C-47 twin-engine aircraft that cruised about 125, 130 miles an hour. Took us 16 and a half hours to get to Honolulu. And then we were assigned to the Navy Command. In turn, we were under Marine Command, and we've on the island of Apamama, which was 80 miles south of Tarawa. And then we had what they call a combat airline. We flew all the islands of the Pacific. I knew the islands over there better than I know the highways in New Jersey here. But then we went to Saipan, and that was our base, flying over to Peleliu, Ulithi, Philippines, New Guinea, and Iwo Jima, Okinawa. And I think the highlight of the whole thing was, and after the Marines landed in Iwo Jima, the high seas prevented them getting supplies. So they called on our squadron to fly over and drop mortar shells to the Marines. And it was a real primitive operation. You had a Marine on the ground in a Jeep with a radio calling us in, and this was only a few hundred feet above the airstrip. And the airstrip was still in the Jap hands, you see. They were fighting right up there. So whenever he gave us the command to drop them, we just literally kicked the stuff out of there, see. And we flew around Suribachi, and then right on back to Saipan. And a few missions later, we brought back the guy who took that famous Iwo Jima picture.
Of the Marines raising
the
flag.
Yeah, the Marine flag raising.
Yes.
Joe Rosenthal. And we greeted the guy, you know, because we were very friendly with these people. And he had a stack of pictures that he took over there. And he laid them all on my table over there. And I'm sure that famous picture was one of them. They were all dramatic, all these Marines and all that. And what I was surprised that about a week or two later, there's that picture on the cover of Time magazine.
Yes.
And of course, the rest is history. You know?
Oh, yes, that has to be one of the most famous.
But I feel extremely lucky that I survived, and was the most fascinating experiences of my life. And I really fell in love with the South Pacific. I've often thought about if things get rough over here, I'll go over there and get a desert island. I don't think you have any more desert islands left up there because civilization's gotten everywhere.
Oh. You were in the Pacific during the entire war, is that correct?
Yes. I also was in the Pacific during the Korean War. We were flying B-29s out of Okinawa hitting North Korea. And I was lucky again over there. I never got hit or nothing, so thank the good Lord I'm still around.
Amen.
And at my age, I thank the good Lord for my blessings.
Okay.